Invincible is probably the series I've created the most content for on this channel. I'm not like the Invincible guy, but after getting into it last year and watching the second season along with everyone else, I have a solid understanding and a good memory of how far we've come. I'm not personally familiar with the comics, so don't go spoiling that for me, but everything up to this point I know, and the finale of Season 2 flipped everything on its head. It's the most eventful and impactful episode of the season for sure, which is just what I needed. The follow-up to Season 1 is definitely inferior, yet I Thought You Were Stronger cannot be ignored when talking about the show. This is incredibly defining for the character arcs of many main players, but most specifically Mark and Nolan, Invincible, and Omni-Man respectively, who've taken huge leaps from their places in the story at the first season's conclusion. So now, let's talk about it. But we're actually going to start after the major conflict with some of the less connected and less important scenes before wrapping back around to the craziness. You got it? Doesn't matter, we're starting. So in Season 1's finale, Nolan spends the first half of the episode beating Mark's ass, giving the show 15 different iconic scenes that have been discussed and posted all over the damn place, from the train scene to Think Mark. However, the most noticeable thing about the second half is that it's pretty uneventful. It's treated as an extended resolution, mostly just falling action. The second season kind of tries the same thing, as Mark's main threat is gone within 20 minutes, but it doesn't work nearly as well, unfortunately, and the main reason is scenes like Duplicate being revealed to be alive, and whatever the hell went on with the Tomb of Carr. These scenes are just not relevant, to put it simply. I like the come down in Season 1 because practically every scene is just showing Mark's or Debbie's gradually changing mental states, but the ones in Season 2 don't matter in the context of the episode, and could easily be pushed to Season 3's premiere. Like, the Cahor thing is definitely setting up a plotline to come, but instead of being treated like some big tease, they just toss it in at some random place and then don't address it again. Also, Kate's alive. Who would have thunk it? I never could have guessed in a million years that Duplicate, the character that has alternate versions of herself, would have stored one away in a remote location. I was so surprised my jaw unhinged and dropped to the floor like it was Tom and Jerry. Oh, and finally, there's a romance scene with Robot and Monster Girl that is so forgettable that I didn't read anything about it until I remembered it just now. Okay, but let's get to the parts of the episode that I like, because I really like those parts. Mark returns home after getting Angstrom's call at the end of episode 7 and finds him holding Debbie and Oliver, his alien brother, hostage. Angstrom lays out the ground rules for how their fight is going to go by threatening Mark's family, but suggesting that they can live as long as Mark suffers for his alternate versions, ruining Angstrom's life in other universes, and this universe's Mark accidentally deforming him. Also, it was at this point that I realized it's pronounced Angstrom Levy, not Angstrom Levy, my bad. But seriously, this whole monologue is pretty great. Sterling K. Brown probably realized this was going to be his last episode and stepped it up even more. He was already doing great, but his conniving and delightfully evil voice getting suddenly challenged by his genuine morals as a human being shaped his fantastic performance during Angstrom's mental breakdown, and it works, because this is the best development he's gotten since his introduction. I was, and still am, annoyed with how much he's been sidelined, but when he got a main role, they were able to act on it. However, in the end, he still lets himself be corrupted, and he delivers a brutal blow to Debbie, who is just a character you never want to see get hurt, while simultaneously throwing Mark between different universes in an attempt to tire him out. These scenes of Mark in different worlds are pretty fun, and they allow him to fall into the place of the charismatic, adaptable comic book superhero for a bit. He interacts with almost Spider-Man, and also actual Batman, although they can't show him on screen or say his name, but still cool. Admittedly, these do fuck with the tone a little bit, since they come between scenes of an endangered mother and her child being tortured, but it's far better than cutting away to someone else's storyline. I'm very happy they didn't do that. After a while, though, Mark is tired of all this shit. Before being thrown into a desolate nowhere planet, he spots Debbie lying injured on the ground and loses it. Angstrom comes in for the attack, but he's quickly overwhelmed when Mark reveals that he was holding back the entire time, before brutalizing the guy so badly that he accidentally kills him while screaming that he won't let anyone come near his family. While I had hoped Angstrom would have more time to develop in later seasons, I secretly was practically certain that he was going to die in the exact way that he did based on the title alone, and they couldn't have done it better. This scene is probably the best of the whole episode. I mentioned Sterling K. Brown's performance already, but the true star is Steven Yeun. His rage that quickly dissipates into shock and later apathy is so perfectly portrayed. At first, it's a bit awkward that he's talking to himself so much, but they literally have a line about that makes it fit the situation. They thought of everything. Plus, this is a rare case of the visuals being one of the strongest aspects of a scene. The wide shot after Angstrom's death showing the unbelievable amount of blood doesn't feel gratuitous or disgusting. It's actually sort of beautiful in how it's drawn. It's got that holy shit factor. My favorite part, though, is that we never see the damage done to Angstrom Levy. Well, we sorta do. After a bit to take it all in, Mark says the line the episode is named for, and the body is shown, but it's barely bloody at all. The part that is mutilated is the head, and that we don't see. Mark can't bring himself to come to terms with what he did. This is a guy that likely could have been redeemed and convinced to stop, even if it took a lot of convincing, but he went for brute force, and now he's right back to, I'm just like my dad. This has been Mark's inner conflict for the entire season, outgrowing his father. From his perspective, he just failed. Mark is seemingly stuck in this wasteland forever now, but he's luckily saved by the future versions of the Guardians of the Globe, who report that, for them, he's been missing for 20 years. It's interesting to see who's still around, and I'm sure that'll become important, but for now, the only one that really matters is Eve. Eve explains that she does love him, and has since they met, but was just too scared to tell him. She requests that Mark either accepts or rejects her in the present just to get it out of her mind, and after doing the quickest head turn of all time, he promptly declines, being too scared himself to confront his emotions. Later, he tells Debbie that he's going to quit college to be a superhero full-time and, quote, get better. Additionally, it's pretty clear that he's cutting things off with Amber. This is a big shift for Mark, and it seems that it's the wrong one. While trying to escape his brute force approach to fights, he's literally brute forcing his own emotions. He knows his issue is being like Nolan, but he doesn't know how to actually fix it. He doesn't have any sort of game plan for getting better, he just wants to get better, and by doing that, he is denying anything that makes him human. It's like the idea of knowing what your future is, but every step you take to avoid it brings you closer. Fascinating way to leave Mark, as it's the first time I thought while watching, shit, he might actually turn out to be evil. On the other hand, Nolan is stuck in a Viltrumite prison awaiting execution and is shockingly changing for the better. This is something that I had thought was just a ploy when he first appeared, but it seems to be real. After the beautiful sequence in episode 4 where Nolan comes close to cutting his life short, he dropped his Viltrumite ideals and is being punished for it. While he doesn't show up a ton in this episode because we obviously have to focus on Mark, the couple scenes we get are strong, especially the mid-credits one. This is the final scene of the entire season, and with our newest villain already gone, Nolan is most likely going to return to a main role for season 3, so the way they set him up is vital. As Alan attempts to convince him to break out and stop the Viltrumite Empire, Nolan elaborates on how his mind was changed in that bloody encounter with Mark. We start to realize that it wasn't just Mark he was thinking of in the memory of the baseball game, but everyone. All the people who supported these children ultimately did nothing to him, and were simply living life the way they chose to live it, like the Thraxans. Nolan has spent so much time with a society with a constructed way of living that it rubbed off on him, and he wants it back. Plus, his life is about to be cut short by his own people, who had told him that he would outlast any human. Now, his strength feels much more fragile. The final line of the entire season is one of my favorites. I think I miss my wife. Not only is this a perfect conclusion to Nolan's realization, but it tees up an encounter in Season 3 that will go so horribly that it's not even a case of good or bad, but very, very bad, and very, very, very bad. I'm so excited. Season 2 was never on the same level as Season 1. Some entire episodes felt skippable, like 2 or even 5 and 6. It was looking like we were getting 8 episodes worth of filler. And then here comes I Thought You Were Stronger, to make a name for the season. We learn so much about Mark, Nolan, even Cecil despite his short appearance, and we end up in such a different place from Season 1's conclusion that they're almost opposites. When we're looking back on the entire finished show and analyzing specific characters, there will be a lot to draw from this period of the series. Overall, the second season focuses too much on removable elements like the Martians or a big giant fish, yet in the end, there was a reason for it. However, I do hope they step it up in Season 3, and here's how, in my opinion. I'm not a screenwriter. First of all, we're gonna need more Nolan. No, he's not the main character, and it's fair to not have him in every episode, but there's been a huge lack of Omni-Man for a while, and with the Viltrumites seemingly stepping into the main villain role, he should come with them. Second, improve the animation at least a little bit. The best way to do this is to just yell at Amazon to give this show a better budget, so do it, Jeffrey. Give this series more money. People are talking about it, and they'll talk about it more if the process of creating it goes smoother. The creators have proven that it can look good, so let them make that happen all the time. And lastly, the show really needs to hone in on one specific thing for at least a good chunk of time instead of stalling all the way until the finale. Robert Kirkman has said that Season 3 will have every episode feel like a finale, and if he's telling the truth, holy shit, I'm hyped. Those would be my 3 main points, but there's more that drags Season 2 down from the ranks of Season 1 to, I'd say, a 7 out of 10. The episode itself, though, a 9. Everyone was on their A game for this finale. I'm hyped, I'm into this show heavy, and I hope that Season 3 is soon to come. If for some reason you've made it this far without watching the show, go do it. Come back when you have, because I'm certain nothing I've said has made any sense to you. For now, though, my planet needs me, so I'll be going. Bye now.